and to discuss the 72nd session of the UN General Assembly. So further, I'm joined by Ian Williams, who is the author of the upcoming book, Untold, The Real Story of the UN in Peace and War. It seems currently there is peace in the world, but there is war as well. Ian, how is the UN faring 72 years after its first session?
I don't think we would have dreamt a few years ago that a president of one of the founders of the UN, of the founder of the UN, in fact, the United States, would stand up here and threaten to destroy a whole country unilaterally. It is not quite what the United Nations was about. I think it stunned the delegates. He didn't threaten to remove the government, which is in violation of the UN Charter. He threatened to destroy the country.
Ian, for our viewers who might not know, you're talking about Donald Trump issuing threats against North Korea, in fact saying that the US would annihilate North Korea if it dared to attack the United States. How do you put that into context for the purpose that the UN was created in the first place?
It's in direct violation of the purpose. It is conceivable that under the UN Charter, if you could get the Security Council to back it, that yes, he could go and annihilate North Korea. But then it would be in violation of all of the rest of the Charter about its humanitarian ends and ending the scourge of war. You don't destroy whole countries because you disagree with their government, especially the contradiction, of course, that you say this government is tyrannical and not looking after the welfare of its people. And destroying and annihilating the people of a country is not exactly looking after their welfare either.
But this isn't the first time that ultimatums have been issued from the UN and that podium as well. If we go back to 2003, at the onset of the Iraq war, just before it began, there was a concerted effort on the part of the UN to convince the UN member states to join in attacking Iraq and Saddam Hussein. So given that history of this platform being used to incite or to threaten, how do you view these current developments with Donald Trump?
Well, they're frightening, partly because of unpredictability. We don't know what happens. I mean, presumably this is on behalf of South Korea, the US ally, which is signaling desperately, no, we don't want military conflict. Because, of course, Seoul, the capital of South Korea, would allegedly go right up in flames because Kim Il-sung is no more concerned about the welfare of the people he intends to liberate than is Donald Trump.
Ian, you're talking about, you've got wars in Yemen, you've got a war in Syria that is now in its 6th year, you've got conflicts throughout Africa as well. Has the UN outlived its purpose?
It hasn't outlived its purpose. It hasn't been used for its purpose. The UN is only effective when the member states, especially the powerful member states, actually do anything about it. And in the case of Syria, for example, former Secretary General Kofi Annan introduced to the United Nations General Assembly a declaration on the responsibility to protect. And that applies in Yemen and Syria, if ever it's applied anywhere. And yet the member states have refused to allow it to happen.
All right, so you're saying, Ian, finally that the system is broken, that the United Nations might be broken. How do you fix it?
Well, you sharpen it. You make it so that the member states actually work on it. But this would take concerted pressure and leadership. I mean, I hate to say it, but looking at the people speaking this week, if you look at the great leaders, there's no Mandela standing up there and calling people to basic moral principles from a high platform. You have the British Prime Minister speaking to a half-empty hall, ignored by people.
Ian Williams, thank you for joining us from New York.
Thank you.